that was more or less the way came from Mexico to Taiwan. And I bring with me also some Mexican candies. This is the flag for Mexico. These are coconut candies. Okay. Everyone wants one? Okay. Okay. And we flew from Tijuana, then, and from Tijuana we flew to China. You want more? For the questions, I have this. Oh, those are very nice. Those are not CDs, but are wafer candies in deep hands. Okay? And then in here, we are very glad to be here. My first work with e-commerce was in 2010. Was Mexican e-commerce. The name was Cruz Urbano, and was a clone of RubyConf. I don't know if you are familiar with RubyConf, the offer of day. And in that project, I did a lot of mistakes, but I learned several very good lessons. My company, Magna Labs, we specialize in e-commerce, and we have several. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. And we specialize in several in e-commerce, and we have customers as GoPro, maybe you know them, ModCloud, and we have about 6 years doing e-commerce using Ruby, Rails, and Spring. And based on that experience, we have gathered several lessons learned. The first one is the verification of understanding. What we mean about that? There is a communication gap between the customers and what they actually communicate to us and how we can implement that. This is based on what is known as the known knowns, the known unknowns, and also sometimes the unknowns unknowns. I'm going to talk more about that later. This is a cartoon regarding how projects really work. At the end is what the customer needed, and that is how he explained to the programmer how it was programmed and how it was delivered in that way. Based on this, we did together in my company research regarding what are the lessons learned for the. We are about 50 developers dedicated to e-commerce using Ruby. Ivan Pavlov, in this quote, makes a very insightful thought that facts are the air for scientists. Without them, you can never fly. Because we build e-commerce, for this talk, actually, we did e-commerce for the different lessons learned. Then we have here, for example, the first lesson is using a ubiquitous language. How many of you have used an ubiquitous language for the system? Anybody? No? Well, it's a practice for domain-driven development. What that means is to gather the domain language and based on that program the system. In the case of e-commerce, for example, we have entities as the shopping cart, but some customers call it, rather than a shopping cart, a basket, or for example, we have the likes or the wish list. Then those terms, we specify them very well and document them, because based on that terms, we program our classes. And this is a practice that have been very productive for us. Also, a lesson learned is regarding the features management and implementation. we found that because we usually work remotely with our clients, where our clients usually are in US, some of them are in Europe, we don't have a co-located customer. Then sometimes to do clarifications regarding the features and requirements, we need to have a very good way to do this asynchronously. And based on that, we then manage better what features and how we should implement them. And for e-commerce, this is key. For that reason, we give this high value, and it's difficult to implement it well. Based on this, also, we have learned that to do a very good management of the features for e-commerce, we need to have baselines and goals defined by the customers. Usually in e-commerce, the final goal is conversion, is to sell something. But to be able to sell something in an e-commerce, we should do a process. And in each phase of this process, we measure how we are doing in order to improve the way that we are doing in the system. For that reason, we use this practice about making a baseline, have metrics, and measure them using different tools. Ruby allows us to integrate, for example, when we use Rails as a RAG application, a RAG middleware, to log different metrics, also using, for example, Google Analytics or Mixpanel or other services to this baseline and metrics measurement. Okay, let's go back. Then, in this code, Robert Martin talks about what is the value of software. And what he means is the most valuable thing of software is that it's flexible, that is extensible, that is maintainable. And in order to do that in an e-commerce, it's very important to have a very good architecture and also to manage very well the integration with third-party systems. Usually in an e-commerce, you have a payment gateway, you have communications with a fulfillment center, with a shipment system. Then you need to have very good management regarding the third-party integrations. And one of the lessons learned for us to do third-party integration is to create adapters and abstractions. Because sometimes the customers start working with one third party, for example, to send emails, they could use MailChimp. But later, for business reasons, they will like to change to another service. For example, MyMini. And if you hard-code the integration and you don't have a very good abstraction, it's going to be very difficult to do these changes. Then this lesson learned about to do abstraction for third-party integration was very insightful for us. Also, that something that sometimes is not very well understood in e-commerce is that the user experience is very valuable. If we don't have a very good user experience translated in a user interface design, the conversion rates suffer. In that case, what we do is measure the different phases of the process to check about where we are losing users or customers, in this case. We then use different techniques, for example, A/B testing, to try to do experiments and check what could function better. to have high conversion rates. Also, something that is very important for an e-commerce is the internationalization and localization. In the morning, we saw a very good presentation regarding internationalization and globalization. In this case, this feature is already integrated with rates in some part, but for example, for currencies, you need also to integrate another hands, for example, money, or do something about this if you are going to sell different products for different currencies. Then, in this case, the value of the effort for us is not as high as other lessons learned in this case. Other point is regarding to have a very clear conversion funnel or workflow, because if you don't have this very clear from the beginning, you cannot measure well the different goals. Then sometimes when you are working in an e-commerce, you need to work very, very closely with the customer to define very well what are the business goals and how are you going to measure them in the e-commerce. Okay. We also, as a lesson learned, we use architectural design and design patterns. For us, as in the implementation of e-commerce, has been very useful to think about how we are going to integrate the different components of the e-commerce, and the use of the design patterns as the adapter that I already mentioned has been very, very useful for us. Something that sometimes is controversial in e-commerce is how you can balance the transaction security and the user experience. How we should reduce the friction that you could have if you want to increase, for example, the security. Sometimes, for example, to have a CAPTCHA code. That also gives you an additional step for friction, where you can lose customers. Then how you should balance the security and the user experience. In our case, we have found that the user experience wins. Is much better for terms of the usual customers that we have. We have better conversion rates in that case, and the return on investment is better, rather than to have a very tight, a very difficult workflow, because putting too much security measures. Another lesson learned is to use background jobs. And fortunately for us, right now in Rails 5, we have active jobs, and then we can use this adapter to integrate different providers of background jobs. Then we can have this integrated in our system easily that we usually do before to have this facility in place. Thank you very much for the community that it is possible. Also, another lesson learned is regarding the performance, the real performance and the perceived performance. And in this case, for example, for increased performance, we do also DevOps operations, and using fragment caching and to cache wherever we can to create better performance for the production environments. But also we work a lot regarding the perceived performance. That means how the user perceives your system. sometimes it's not as responsive, but you have some interaction using a very well designed user experience, then you perceive performance is much better. That is the real performance. Then this lesson learned is also very important for us right now. And something that we just started doing more and more since 1 year is to have a pipeline for continuous integration and continuous delivery. That means we can integrate our system several times a day, and also to deliver that system in production automatically using different tools, some in Ruby, some not in Ruby. For example, we use Ansible to integrate the continuous delivery. But this has been for us a practice that is very valuable, because now we can do different experiments and tweak things in real time very easily in the different e-commerce that we have developed. Okay, then at the end, this variable M talks about that the fundamental goal of the design and engineering is maximize the added value of any given investment. That means the software development and design is an investment activity. We invest resources, and the user, the client wants to have the most for those specific investments. In this case, the return of investments for them is how we can maximize the expected value based on conversions, how they could achieve their goals, and how we can demonstrate that they achieve those goals. And thanks for the Ruby specifness and metaprogramming, keeping a lot of discipline to avoid excess of marketing passion, also to have some tweaking for performance in some frameworks. We have been able to do this. Then I want also to highlight that we in Mexico, we have this conference, RubyConf, this year. Next year is going to be in June, and we are going to be open for call for proposals in December. Then if you want to go to Mexico and fly 19 hours, as I did, you can join us. This year actually was also there Sarah Allen, and if you want some comments and recommendations, she is the one to do it. 2 years ago, Aaron Patterson, that is also in this conference, he was there. Then it's very good. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Candice.
Does anyone want to ask any questions? Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, so you mentioned all these architectural patterns, and I was wondering if you use any ready solution for that, like pre-commerce or something like this, or if you designed the whole solution from the scratch just using Rails.
We use both. For some projects, we use Spree as a base. Actually, we also have a lot of different extensions for Spree that we have done, and we have extract from different projects. And also we developed some custom-made solutions for some specific purposes. When a Spree workflow is not very well suited for the e-commerce, because tweaking the workflow in Spree sometimes is a little bit difficult. That is the reason maybe to do that. Yeah? You want an opportunity? Anyone? No? Okay. Thank you very much.